beauty about living in a big city and sort of being able to amble around, particularly in the downtime on a job like this, where you're not reporting live, etc. You do get a chance to have a meander around and see things that, perhaps if you come on a holiday, you're down to a time scale, aren't you? Do you know what I mean, chums? You have to fit things in, because you definitely want to go and see Tower of London, or you might want to go see Tower Bridge or Parliament or whatever. And it's little things that you don't necessarily see when you're just wandering around. And this is exactly what happened to me the other day, because it's a funny thing. This particular venue here, the Cumberland as it used to be known, the Cumberland Hotel in the very heart of Oxford Street, Marble Arch, was a a very big place way back in the 30s, literally when it sort of came into its own. And for me, I have a history there also, because I performed there with a few big bands, yes. And it's funny, isn't it, when you're young, you just march in, you're clueless, and you just think, well, it's another job, another gig. But of course, there's always a history. It's only when you're a little bit older that you look at the history and think, wow. I remember interviewing the brilliant comedians Mike and Bernie Winters, and they told me that they too appeared in cabaret at the Cumberland Hotel, because it was a good sort of area for agents and managers in that particular time, the 40s and 50s, for people to come in. They sort of got spotted and things went from there, as you can imagine. But what I like about the stories about this is literally this. So we haven't had a wave, have we? We'll have a lovely wave. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you told me off, but I get so engrossed in the story, you see. Well, we're having a cup of tea and a gossip, aren't we? This is the thing. Now, for anybody who went through the 1960s, the swinging 60s, as they say, I've interviewed many stars of that era, from Helen Shapiro to the likes, of course, of Lulu and so many others. And they often say that, it sort of portrays itself better on paper than it did actually live in it. And I would probably think that it's like every generation, isn't it? But our memories tend to block out the bad bits, you know what I'm saying? Now, what I like about this particular story is, who remembers this man? Yes, a rock god, some people might say, Jimi Hendrix. Now, Jimi Hendrix, I didn't realise this either, appeared on the BBC TV show Jukebox Jury. That must have been very controversial back in the day. Can you imagine just having him there, Everybody knows he was a very gifted musician. But did you know that, in fact, this was listed on his death certificate as his very final address? That's right. Just 6 days before he died, he checked into the then Cumberland Hotel and did a series of interviews. He'd done this sort of Isle of Wight festival, and it hadn't gone down very well. And you have to remember, festivals, as I'm sure a lot of you remember, were not the sort of money colossus that they are now, all branded and stuff. They would tended to be rather shambolically put together. After all, this was the 60s. It was hip and happening, man, and all that sort of stuff. And I quite like the idea that Jimi Hendrix, just sort of meandered into the hotel. Apparently shocked a lot of people, because he was dressed in all of that hippie gear. Yes, and many stars who, I've been lucky enough to interview, who met Jimi Hendrix, said he was nothing like the rocker at all. It's a bit like Jim Morrison, I know I interviewed somebody once who said that they got to know him well, and they said he was quite shy and retiring, but on stage became the character. The same was said apparently for Jimi Hendrix. Now, this particular hotel is no longer, no, it's not the Cumberland anymore, it's the Hard Rock Hotel. And what's interesting about this is it's all dedicated to so many different styles of musical genre, including that of Jimi Hendrix. And Jimi Hendrix has his own suite, yes, that you can now stay in, and there's a plaque, as you can see, outside the hotel. And it got me thinking as I walked past it the other day and thought, wow, there are memories, because further up the road, and I may do something about that, in a little while, Glenn Miller literally set off from his very final destination, literally from Oxford Street, on that fateful night, so many people say. So wherever you turn in this wonderful capital city, if you look around and you are coming over here and you are lucky enough to spend some time, you might want to do all the tourist stuff, but don't forget to look around you, because there are so many things. And I remember when I first came to London, I don't mind sharing this with you, I wanted to go to the house where they'd filmed the exteriors of Upstairs, Downstairs. I love that show, you see, and that's the thing. Whatever we're interested in, we like to have a look, don't we, and think, oh, is this it? It's never as sort of big or as imposing or as, I don't know, glamorous as you imagined it to be on the TV. That was the power back then. For many people, of course, Jimi Hendrix remains an absolute superstar, and his music and his legacy live on. And thankfully, people can remember him. Even though this was listed, he had a house not too far away, in fact, where sadly that situation happened, but this was finally his listed death certificate address. If you're a rock fan and you want to sort of marvel in the greatness of that particular era, then why not pop around the corner next time you're on Oxford Street? Neil Sean in the very heart of London.